Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is taste. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear taste used is to mean to perceive the flavor of something using one's mouth. So this connects to one of our senses, the ability to perceive or be aware of certain flavors. So with this particular definition, we might ask someone if they've tasted a certain spice, right? Have they perceived that particular flavor? A second way you hear the verb taste used is to mean to have a specific flavor. So sometimes we might describe something as being salty or sweet, bitter, right? Those would be ways to connect to this second definition. So I might say, this tastes sweet. This tastes salty. A third way the verb taste gets used is to mean to sample or test the flavor of some food or drink. Maybe you do this while you're cooking. I do sometimes, depending on what it is, where I sort of test. So I might be making soup as an example, and I might take a clean spoon out, right? Take a little bit and kind of see, does this need more salt? Does it need some other spice to kind of improve the flavor? So with this third definition, we're really talking about kind of a small amount of eating, just to kind of check how this food or drink might be. A fourth way to use the verb taste, and that is not connected to our mouths, is just to mean to have a particular experience. So you might hear a description of someone tasting success. So they're having a successful experience. You should know that the verb taste is a regular verb. To make the progressive form, I need to drop the E and then add ing to form tasting. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by just adding the letter D, since this verb already ends in an E. Our base verb, taste, ends with a T sound. So our rule is, as we add this ed, we're going to make an id sound, and we add an extra syllable to our root word here. So the past tense and participle forms of this verb should be pronounced tasted, tasted. Okay. Now, I don't have any phrasal verbs for us to study today, so let's focus on using our verb of the day in a couple different verb tenses. Today, we're going to practice the past perfect and the present progressive, which you might also know as the present continuous. But we'll start with the past perfect. We use this verb tense to note that a particular action has happened at some point in the past, maybe before a certain time or before another event, to make the past perfect. In the affirmative, I'm going to have a subject, then I'm going to use the past form of have, which is had, and then I use my participle form of the verb. You can see this in my example. The team had tasted defeat before and always bounced back. So here's that fourth definition of the verb. So we're saying they have had the experience of losing, of being defeated, but they were able maybe to come back the next game and win. If I want to make a negative past perfect sentence, what I'm going to do is start with my subject, then I use had not, or the contraction hadn't, and then the participle form of the verb. Here's another example. I hadn't tasted great biryani since I was in Hyderabad. Okay, and this also true sentence. I spent a few weeks in Hyderabad about 8 years ago. Had a great experience. Ate some wonderful food, and their biryani is known. I think worldwide. I've tried it since coming back to the United States, but it just isn't as good as it is in India. No surprise there. Now let's take a look at a yes or no question. To do this in the past perfect, I start with had, then I have my subject, and then I have that participle form of the verb. Here's another example. Had you tasted the dessert before serving it? This is something I know I ask my husband to do quite often, especially if I'm serving guests, like, oh, here, try this. Is it okay to give to other people? Because I'm always afraid of serving food that does not taste good. Now let's take a look at the present progressive. We use this verb tense to discuss something that is happening now. We might also use it to describe an action that is in progress. And many times you're going to see taste used or described as being stative, as describing a state. So if I want to talk about kind of the flavor of something, I can just use the simple present. But if we're talking about trying something, sampling something, then it's going to be okay for us to use the present progressive. And I think all of my examples here are going to be connected to that. So an example of this in the present progressive, I guess I should back up and say our structure here is to start with our subject. We use a present form of be, and then we use the ing form of the verb. So that form of be will change based on what our subject is. Now let's look at an example. People are tasting samples of the new baked goods as they shop at the market. So again, I might be describing something that is happening right now. So a vendor, a business of some kind is offering something new, and to get people excited or interested in buying it, maybe they're giving small samples and they're, right? Do I like it? Do I want to have or purchase more? If I want to make a negative present progressive sentence, what I'm going to do is start with my subject, then I use my be verb, and then not, and then that ing form of the verb. An example of this: he isn't tasting the wine right now. So maybe someone is preparing for a party and they want to make sure they have the right wine that goes with their main course. Now let's look at making a yes or no question. To do this in the present progressive, we start with our form of be that matches our subject, that comes next, and then we have that ing form of the verb. An example of this: are you tasting cinnamon in this? Right? So kind of recognizing that flavor maybe as you sample or eat something. Now let's talk about some words and phrases that are related to our verb taste. And the first word we're going to discuss is just the noun form of this word. So same spelling, same pronunciation. The noun taste can have a number of different meanings. An example, or one way to use this particular noun is to refer to the sensation, to the flavors that one is recognizing or perceiving in their mouth. So, an example of this: this has a really sour taste. So I can tell that taste is not my verb here because I see has, and I can see the article a in the sentence as well. But I could express sort of the same idea and make it a verb. I could just say this tastes sour or really sour if I'm trying to stress it. But those are really two ways to talk about the flavor, what you're experiencing as you consume food or drink. A second way to use the noun taste is to refer to a small portion of food or drink. So you might hear someone say to you as they're preparing, give my dish a taste, right? So I don't want you to take a whole plate full of food to eat. I want you to maybe take a spoon or forkful just to see, is this good or is it no good? A third way to use the noun taste is to describe some brief experience. An example: my first taste of ESL teaching was in 2011. So my first experience. A fourth way to use the noun taste is to describe someone's liking of certain flavors, or maybe their liking of just other things. An example of this might be, this is too salty for my taste. So what I'm really saying is I don't care for this dish. I don't like it because the flavor is too salty. A fifth way to use the noun taste is to refer to one's ability to judge what is good quality. So here, sometimes people will refer to clothes or their fashion taste, and kind of like, do they like things that are considered to be good or to be stylish? Another way to use it is in my example sentence here. We don't have the same tastes in movies. So what I consider to be a good movie maybe is different than what another person thinks. And so how we're judging what is quality is different. A sixth way to use the noun taste is to refer to someone's ability to act in a way that society says is sort of acceptable. So you might hear a sentence like this: that joke is in bad taste. So perhaps someone is making a joke about something that kind of, as a group of people, we're like, no, we are not going to make jokes about this particular topic. It's too serious. It's maybe too sad. I know maybe to help give you an idea, I think there are certain comedians who maybe have gotten in trouble making jokes about school shootings here in the United States. And they're like, oh, you can't make a joke about that. Children have died, right? So what we sort of agree to being okay in society can be different. We can maybe disagree, but there, I think, are certain things that people will generally agree to. And that's what that sixth definition is discussing. The next thing we're going to look at is the noun taster. So again, we can see the suffix of er. So we know this is going to be a person who tests the quality of food or drink. Many times they are employed, they are paid to do this. Which always sounds like kind of a fun job to get paid to eat. But I know it can be very hard work and as well. So an example of this might be, coffee tasters have said this is the best blend of beans. So here we're sort of relying on these experts in tasting. The last thing we'll discuss today is the phrase, to leave a bad taste in one's mouth. Now, this phrase might sound like it is connected to eating, like you ate something that was unpleasant and now you have this lingering or lasting feeling, but it's not actually a literal thing, right? So this has nothing to do with food. But what it means is that someone or something has caused unpleasant feelings, or it's maybe creating some unpleasant memories. So an example of this. That class left a bad taste in my mouth, and I haven't wanted to study astronomy again. And again, true statement for me. I had a college astronomy class. I don't think I was really interested in the topic, but I needed science credits. Someone had told me this was good, and the professor changed at the last minute. I didn't really care that much for the current one. Sometimes you just have kind of a disagreement. So there were a number of things that I found odd and maybe difficult. And so I think it has sort of caused these unpleasant feelings on this particular topic. And so it's not really something I spend time reading about or learning for whatever reason. So just my personal experience. I hope these videos don't cause a bad taste in your mouth and that you're enjoying studying English with us. I really appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a great day.